Hi everyone, it's Angel. Welcome to Healthy House Calls with Angel. You know that this show is all about two things, mindfulness and lifestyle medicine, and how we use the tool of mindfulness to create better lifestyle habits that help us live that level 10 life, losing weight, being more fit, making better food choices, feeling more productive, and more than anything, feeling more purposeful and creating new definitions of health and wellness. I am so excited about today's show, you guys. I decided to do something different. I decided to be more creative and take the show on the road. I decided I want to talk to ordinary people doing extraordinary things and living extraordinary lives. So my first guest on this show is Courtney King, owner of King Solutions. Courtney is an organizational expert out in California, and she's going to talk to us about something that's super, super important. I think you're really going to enjoy today's show. I don't want to give away the juice, so sit back, relax, enjoy today's episode. Be good to yourself, and don't forget to leave a couple of comments for me in the comment section. If you'd like to be a guest on my show and talk about something extraordinary that you're doing that's helping you live an extraordinary level 10 life, please let me know. Leave a comment in the comments section, and I'd love to consider having you as a guest on an upcoming episode. Take good care, be good to yourself, relax, and enjoy the show. Bye-bye. Hello, Courtney King. Thank you so much for joining me today. I thank you so much for your graceful acceptance of my invitation to join me on one of my episodes for Healthy House Calls with Angel. And as you know, if you've seen any of the videos, I really focus in these videos on just lifestyle medicine and integrative health. And I really, really love talking to people like yourself who have integrated like different lifestyle modifications to live what I call level 10 life. So level 10 means like when you do a survey and you give something a level 1 or a level 2 or a level 3, level 10 is like my way of saying living your best life. So thank you so much for being willing to come on the on a taping for me for the show and talk about something that I think is really super important, which is sleep. So something we all want and need more of. So if you can, please just sort of give our audience a little intro of you, who you are, what you do. I kind of know, but I want to give you the opportunity to just sort of introduce yourself and talk about the kind of work you do and give a little story about your background.
Okay. My name is Courtney King. My business is called King Solutions, and I'm a professional organizer. I've been in practice 10 years. Yes, 10 years now. And over the years, I've achieved a specialty. My original training was to work with people who had hoarding behaviors. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of, it was kind of sort of psych background training on that. But lately, my specialty has shifted more into people who are dealing with extreme life transitions. So families of the recently deceased, the terminally ill, like people who are dealing with like major upheavals, mm-hmm. and how to make their space more functional, mm-hmm. and or shut it down completely, like, mm-hmm. depending on what's going on. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. Wow. That's sort of the overview.
Yeah. And Courtney, how did you come into doing this kind of work? So what were you doing before this work?
I was actually working in nonprofit fundraising management for 15 years and wound up getting laid off during the downturn. Mm-hmm. And helping people with their space was sort of a hobby of mine. Mm-hmm. But in the downturn, I was kind of like, well, if this is, I didn't want to go back into anything remotely related to finance, mm-hmm. at all. Mm-hmm. And realized I would rather eat glass than try and brave that again. Mm-hmm. I like doing this thing that's a hobby. Mm-hmm. I hear there are people that make a living off of it. Mm-hmm. I should see.
That is so fantastic. So
You know that I'm a nurse practitioner, and as I said, I do
Yeah.
coaching in my private practice. And as I said earlier, focus on integrative and functional medicine. And you just said something that I think is like, I want to just dive into this, making that shift from your corporate work and then into, getting out on your own and starting something of your own. Um, and I'm wondering if you can just speak to, how, what were what were the dynamics that led you to make that shift and how that shift occurred? So what were some of the challenges in making that shift, physical, emotional, mental, things like that, before we get into talking about the sleep specifically?
Oh, like going from corporate to independent?
Absolutely. Yes.
Ooh.
And what were some of the stressors?
Oh, uh, getting over the fear of feast versus famine.
Yeah.
Because when you're starting, it's sort of like, oh, I have all the clients. This is going to be the way it's going to be forever.
Right. Right.
That's not what happens. It goes up, it goes down.
Yeah.
And learning how to make peace with the down part was
Mhm.
an adventure. I still am kind of like, when there are low times.
Mhm.
But I've learned to shift and look more at writing or marketing or networking. Like
Mhm.
there's always some other area to work on. But
Mhm.
when I started, that didn't quite register. I just
Mhm.
sort of put my shingle out and was like, I'm gonna do all the things.
Right. 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 Right.
Uh, but
And the
like,
stress that comes along with that, juggling so many things. Because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I work in my coaching practice with a lot of people who are, solopreneurs and, on their own. And as you know, just juggling so many different hats. Like you said, there's the working in your business, and then there's the working on your business, right? And then figuring out like, what's my schedule going to be? And then how much money I need to make, and the stress that comes along with that.
no,
Yeah,
that is very, very real.
yeah.
And honestly, one of the weirdest parts for me, this thing-based, go figure,
Hmm.
uh, was turning my closet over because in organizing, I never know if I'm going to be like sitting, having this deep conversation with somebody who's freshly divorced,
Hmm.
or if I'm going to be crawling around in a storage area on my hands and knees, like
Hmm.
looking for things or helping someone manage that spot. So shifting my closet, like my own personal wardrobe, from suits and dresses and all these things, and like I put the heels away, to sort of somebody called my vibe kindergarten teacher chic,
Hmm.
where it's like you don't know what you're going to encounter, so just like be cute but be ready for anything.
Be ready for anything. Yeah, yeah. So
That was
how did you manage the stress of that, like making that transition, from, as you said, your corporate world to now, hanging your own shingle? Were there any kind of like lifestyle things in addition to just getting your own space organized? Because we can't teach what we don't know, right?
true.
So in addition to that, like, were there other like lifestyle changes that you had to make to manage the stress of that transition?
I'm a morning person now. I was so not a morning person
Hmm.
when I was in the corporate world. I would sleep right up until I knew I had 8 minutes to run down and catch the train to go down.
Right, right.
Now I wake up pretty regularly at 5:30
Hmm.
and like journaling and doing the things I need to do in order to get my mask on
Hmm.
for the day.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
I never would have thought I would be a 5:30 a.m.
yeah,
person, but apparently I am.
yeah, yeah. But conversely, that means, I think, that you might be an early to better, like early sleeper. Is that
That
right?
yes, now
Hmm.
it took me a while to figure out if you actually want to be functional at 5:30, you have to go to bed early.
Exactly, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this interview with you because, and I'll say to the audience that Courtney and I follow each other on Twitter. And
Yes.
so there was this one entry. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. there was this one tweet that you put out there that I was like, oh my gosh, she totally gets it. Well, it was a series of tweets. You were talking about sleeping, and you were talking about just what we're delving into right now about, you can't have it both ways. You can't be up at 5:30 in the morning and expect to be up all night and then
Yeah.
being productive. And so I think we were talking about, like, it might have been sort of maybe rooted in that whole hustle, go, 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 and being up all night and burning the candle. And you were saying, like, oh no, 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 you got to get some rest, kind of like what you were saying in your just a moment ago. And then we got into this conversation about sleep, the value of sleep on productivity, and especially for the entrepreneur. Like, I can't think of anyone who needs to value their sleep more than an entrepreneur, and so you had gone into tweets about lifestyle modifications that you had made. So I want to delve into that a little bit, on some of the things that you did then and that you do now. So I'm going to pass the mic to you to talk about that. And especially from the perspective of an entrepreneur, because I think that's so, so, so important.
I'm trying to figure out where to start. Like, I do remember that conversation. I think I was talking about it in terms of the seasonal change and sort of the for yourself. But it kind of, like, the rest part of it, it came to me because it was one of those things I was studying in order to use to help clients. Because in my practice, I work a lot around productivity and, like, how to make the space optimized to get things done you want to get done. But you can set the stage, but the actor still has to be in good shape.
Yes.
So you can, like, you get the space together, and then it's like, all right, what's your rest schedule like? And I'll get, like, blank stares, like, and a lot of the training that I had goes into that, like how one night of lousy sleep has, I forget the, like, actual number impact on your ability to function and your ability to engage your prefrontal cortex.
Yes.
Like, making decisions is demonstrably harder if you aren't fully rested.
Exactly.
Like, badge of honor around, like, I pulled an all-nighter and I did all this thing and sleep is for the weak and I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'm like, you can do that. You can. I can't. And I've seen the impact that it had on clients, and was like, okay, all right, I believe. But making those changes for yourself is hard. It's so hard.
Yeah, it is. And, I think, you said so much in that, in your statement there, because it's like, again, you can't teach what you don't know, number one. And then, they say practice what you preach, but you don't have to worry about practicing what you preach if you actually preach what you practice, right? So it kind of goes both ways. You get better at preaching what you practice and practicing what you preach, if you just kind of do the thing, right? But you're so right that, and it's like all over the place. So, like, social media and the internet, it's all about entrepreneur, start something of your own. And there's no real talking about the importance of having balance. And as you said, prefrontal cortex and decision making and memory and judgment and your personality. I mean, we all know, we can tell people who have not had enough sleep, like, so irritability and mood changes. And how can you be an effective leader if you're not getting a good night's rest? So it's so good that you honed in on that in the beginning of your, in your journey as an entrepreneur, that, what, this is something that I want to invest in. Like, this is part of my business, being my very best and showing up as my very best, for my clients, and then just for yourself, Yeah. So what were some of the things that you needed to do to get that good rest? Like, schedule modifications or physical things?
It was, where did I start? It kind of shifted over time. one of the first ones was getting a grip on my caffeine.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Coffee is not an all-day drink. Not an all-day drink. Getting a grip on that,
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
but even beyond that, in the past, I have dealt with seasonal affective disorder, seasonal depression,
Mm-hmm.
which would make me sleep a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I would sort of hunker down and go,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things I got was a sad lamp.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things that didn't seem like, okay, I'm doing this so I can wake up in the morning and it's not such a drag.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize the overall effect it would have as far as like just having that boost in the morning
Sure.
and not having to depend so heavily on the caffeine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of like other like tangible things,
Mm-hmm.
like as opposed to head changes. The weighted blanket was a big one.
Yes, it was. I was going to throw that out there. I'm like, you can't forget that weighted blanket conversation. So please share with us how you came to that decision.
The weighted blanket actually is because from a conversation that we had back in the summer
Mm-hmm.
about sleep,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been doing these things around sleep hygiene and was starting to deal with waking up in the middle of the night and having night sweats. And like that was just
Mm-hmm.
not tenable.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about tracking your sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you encouraged.
Yes. I remember that. Yeah. I
So
remember
I got one. And the first thing I did, I slapped it on my wrist. I got in bed. I went to sleep. I woke up. I went to sleep. I woke up. I get up in the morning and I look at the thing and I see how long, like how many times I woke up in the night.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrifying.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
So in that was like, okay, all right, I need to figure out things that will help me sleep through the night.
Mm-hmm.
So the weighted blanket, my husband actually got it for me.
Okay.
Because he heard me fussing about it. So he got it for me, and I came back from a trip, and it was on the bed, and I crawl under it, and I'm thinking, this is kind of heavy. It's like a 20-pound blanket.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty beefy.
Yeah.
But I slept hard through the night. I think the monitor just said I just went down and stayed down. It was deep. So much sleep. It was good.
Yeah.
And the best I can figure out is the times that I am conscious of waking up beneath it,
Mm-hmm.
I wake up and it's so heavy. It just pushes you. It's like swaddling without swaddling.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It just pushes you down. So the fidgeting that you would normally do when you're restless and you can't, no, you cannot fidget.
Yeah. 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 So I heard you say 3 things that were really important. So eliminating or reducing caffeine as much as you could,
Yes.
the weighted blanket, and then your lamp. So all 3 of those things, so important. And for the audience, for people listening in, caffeine, there's so much data and information online about caffeine and whatnot. And I'll never be the one to say, don't drink any coffee. But I think, in moderation, and considering the effect that caffeine has on cortisol and what cortisol's role in the body is for sleep regulation, I think it's worth saying that if you have, serious sleep problems and the awakening and things like that, one of the most important things to do is to get that cortisol cycle regulated. And you can absolutely do that through some of the lifestyle modifications we're talking about, not the least of which would be reduction of caffeine. For those who feel like they absolutely have to have it, I typically will say, okay, well, maybe a little green tea as opposed to, coffee. And certainly reducing the amount of coffee, because here in the States, coffee is like this big in containers, and in other countries, coffee, right?
This is actually like juice.
Yeah. And then, shifting the coffee to like maybe morning, and definitely like not having anything after, if your sleep time is 8 p.m., maybe cutting it off at minimum 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours prior to the desired hour of sleep. So
Yeah.
that was really huge. And then you mentioned like the light, again, knowing the role of cortisol and melatonin, production in the brain, and knowing what their role is in sleep regulation, that is really, really huge. And especially for individuals who are challenged by seasonal affective disorder, because it's like you said, it's just that constant, that constant fatigue and that feeling of just being sort of like weighted down. And also, that light regulation, that mechanism in the brain that can differentiate between light and dark and time to sleep versus time to be awake. So that's really important. You and I talked about the weighted blanket, and we talked about the Fitbit, and I'm a big data collector. Like, I really, really love being able to see the data. And like you, when I had my Fitbit, well, I still wear it, but when I first got mine, I was shocked. Like, I was like, wow, like I couldn't believe, just that up and down and the up and down. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. And I knew for me personally, it was a temperature thing. Like, I
Oh,
needed to cool my room down because I was always like, oh, it's so cold, I need to turn the heat on. And then next thing you know, I'm like sweating to death in the middle of the night.
okay.
So I read some of the science about, cooling the room down and whatnot, and getting it to, the I think I now keep it like at maybe 67, 68, so it's nice and chilly. That has helped. But the weighted blanket, that was the turn in the tide. Our conversation. I was going to like fly out to California and be like, let me give this girl a big hug. Because that
Oh,
was truly, truly the turn in the tide. We've
it
had some
really is.
conversations on Twitter about this, and others have jumped in. Can you, and that the questions have been like, how did you choose a weighted blanket? And how did how much weight and all this? So can you talk to that at all?
Uh, as far as the weight goes, my partner got it.
Mhm.
Um, but 20 pounds is what we have. I don't know what the other weight increments are,
Mhm.
like that are popular in the market right now.
Mhm.
What's the weight of your
So I have 20 pounds also, and
okay.
I've seen 15 pounds, 10 pounds, and I've even
Yeah.
seen them as light as like 5 pounds.
Like I want
Um,
to get one for my mom, but like I don't want to get her the 20 pounder because she's like she'll hurt herself wrestling with it in the night.
right, right, right. And it
Um,
is indeed heavy. Like, I can honestly say mine is indeed heavy. But like you said, it's that swaddling feeling, and it reduces, would you say that it definitely reduces that sort of restlessness at night?
yes,
Yeah.
it definitely reduces restlessness, and there's something about it that it like when you're asleep, you're really asleep under it, but when you wake up, you're very mindful when you get up, like you move it very carefully because you don't
Mhm.
want to wrench anything.
Right,
Because
right.
it's so heavy. So it brings us this weird kind of mindfulness to sleep.
It does. Yeah, it does. And you're right, because I know for myself, like, when I do wake up, it's usually because maybe a sound or something else, or just wanting to shift my body position. But I'll tell you, when I just pull it up just a little bit more or just adjust it a little bit, it's like I get right back to sleep. Like, there's no sleep delay or anything like that. Like, I can feel myself really just settle down. Yeah, yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, Courtney, is, since you've made these modifications, like, your Fitbit and tracking your sleep, the weighted blanket, the light, the elimination of caffeine, the getting up early and being, doing work, and then being intentional about going to bed at a relatively decent hour, what can you say that has done to your productivity, to your work, how you approach your work? How has it changed your life, or changed how you approach what you do?
It's provided this bedrock, basically.
Mm.
Like it's not big or flashy. It's not really fancy,
Mhm.
but it's provided such a firm foundation for what's going on. I'm able to be more patient,
Mm-hmm.
is true, and more present with my own clients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm also able to model for them
Mm-hmm.
what is useful. So like having that sort of basis of information to pull from my own life and my own experience,
Mm-hmm.
really. Um, but also, again, with the getting up early, that was like very unexpected. I wasn't looking for that one to happen.
Yeah.
But it having that space to myself to get my own thoughts together,
Mm.
to do writing, to think about things for the day, to review everything that I have ahead of me, it makes me feel much more grounded and much less reactive.
Mm.
There's a lot less, oh my God, going on, like trying to keep
Right.
up with things, and more
Right.
cool.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say, which is so powerful, is that it's giving you your morning back.
Yes.
Yeah, it's giving you your morning back. You're getting more juice out of your mornings. You've got this morning routine that helps you get centered and focused. That's so powerful. That is so powerful. And not like dragging out of the bed and dreading, oh my God, I'm so tired, and oh my God, I didn't sleep, and all that kind of thing. Because I think that's just terrible, to wake up. It's one thing to wake up like that, maybe, one time. Oh, I was out late and oh, I'm so tired. But what do our lives look like when we're starting the day like
Over and over and over again.
every single day, and for your work, your work around organizing and being organized and creating structure. And it sounds to me like the sleep is an extension of your work, which is to create structure, like where you're creating structure in physical spaces.
It
Sleep
starts
has helped you create structure in a mental space.
it starts here, like it all starts here. Um, One of the things that they train us in, especially with dealing with more extreme cases, is before you even address anything about somebody's space, you need to ask them what their sleep is like. And
Oh,
yeah, no, like asking them what their sleep is like, what's their self-care, but like at the bottom of like the base for their self-care is sleep. That's like it.
that is so powerful. Like, you have no idea. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, really? Like they have us check with diet sometimes, but no, sleep. Are you getting enough rest? Because that whole being able to connect with and engage with your prefrontal cortex, it is so impaired
Yeah.
when you are sleep deprived that anything you do really is, it's like just spitting in the wind if they're not getting the right amount of sleep in order to engage their executive function to apply the organizational principles that we bring. So sleep.
Wow. Yeah. And it just gets back to, and it parallels with my work so beautifully. And, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because a lot of times people come to me for health coaching. So you're coaching on physical spaces. I'm coaching on someone's bodily space, mental space, but it's all kind of the same. And, they come to me and it's like, oh, I want to lose weight. Or the doctor says I'm 2 steps away from being on medication for diabetes or whatever it is. And they want all these interventions, like what should I take? And, um, what supplements and all this other thing. And, and do I need to exercise and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, before we talk about any of those things, what I want to know first and foremost is, how do you sleep? How well do you sleep? How long do you sleep? How do you feel when you wake up? Because
Oh,
as you said, everything in this brain, everything that we do going forward is going to be reliant upon how well you are able to think and execute. So there's thinking and then there's execution, right? And so it's like, I don't even want to talk to you about supplements and any of that kind of stuff
yeah.
until I know for sure that you can think clearly.
Oh,
And you will not do that if you are running off of 5 hours or 3 hours. And
Oh.
let's just say this, even if it's 8 hours of up and down and up and down and up and down, everything that I tell you is going to go in here and come out there.
Mhm.
I can tell you exercise 5 days a week. I can put you on a bunch of supplements. I can talk about anything you want to talk about. I've been doing this work over 20 number of years. But what I'm saying to you is none of that is going to be of value to you if it's coming in here, coming in here, coming in there, going out,
And you
not
don't make the connection.
gelling. Yeah, yeah. And so that's why when you talked about it, I was like, oh my God, I've got to talk to her. And I really wanted your perspective on this. And I'm so glad that you made the connection between our physical space, our ability to organize and execute and have structure, and and its relationship to sleep.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this before we go. Any recommendations for people who say, oh my God, I just don't even know where to get started. And, how do I shop for these products? And, what's the first thing I need to do? And, just from a lifestyle medicine, because I think you and I, one of the things we also have in common amongst many other things is we like to keep things simple, right? So you don't want to make this thing complicated and whatnot. What would you say to people who say, I don't know how to choose a lamp, or I don't know how to choose a blanket, or what have you? What kind of advice would you give for that person?
Oh, I think I would give the same advice that I gave in that Twitter thread, where it was like, don't think about it too much,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you're making the sleep about a thing when it's really about the sleep. Uh, like, so whatever helps you get to sleep, and that varies from person to person. So just try something,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll be able to know. So somebody I think was asking about like, how do I choose a lamp? And I was like, pick one.
Yeah, yeah,
Seriously, pick
yeah,
one.
yeah,
You
yeah.
want to go cheap? Go cheap. That's fine because you're testing the concept to see how it sits with you. Uh,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
and
It's
then, yeah, if it's better, like if that's something that really works, then it's like, okay, this thing will do until it breaks or something, and then I'll get another one. Or like, oh, I'll upgrade it.
yeah.
But it's not about the decision, it's about the action.
Oh, it's not about the decision, it's about the action. Absolutely. Because we get so caught up in the brands and the names and wanting to get it right the first time when you
Yeah,
don't even know if this is going to be useful for you, right? So
that
I
part.
always say, just start somewhere. Just
Just,
start. And you know what? Start with one thing, like one thing. Don't try to do all the things.
oh God, no, that's a recipe for like just getting tangled up and falling over your own feet.
Yeah, yeah. I always just tell people just start with one thing, and and then you build on it from there. You
Mhm.
upgrade and you say, "Hey, this is working for me." So now, and have a reason for upgrading, right? Like my
Yes.
blanket, I think I got mine like right out of Target, and it was not expensive. That I do know
Mhm.
because, like you, I just need to start somewhere, and it works for me. I don't have any reason to upgrade it or change it or anything. Now, if I learn something new about weighted blankets and there's some reason for me to get, the Mercedes-Benz version of them, then I'll do that. But
Yeah.
the
But it's not like you can't refine what you don't have. So like get the thing, figure out how it shows up in your life and how you need it to work for you.
yes.
Then you can start to do the refinement.
Exactly, exactly. And that is just true wisdom to offer to people because it becomes this vicious cycle. And then it's more thinking and less doing. And you
Yes.
and I both know that, I know for me, I've seen people on Twitter who I know I've had this conversation with before, and we are
Mhm.
now 2 years down the line, and they are still saying, I can't sleep, or I can't, and it's like, okay, I remember you tweeted this to me about 2 years ago. So just start somewhere. Start
Yeah.
with one thing and start one place. And then one more final word. I know we said a final word before, but one more final word for entrepreneurs. in the way of sleep. Any recommendations or advice for people who are either just getting started in their entrepreneurial journey or are further down the line, and you know, having sleep issues or productivity issues or organizational issues? Any thoughts in that regard?
Uh, the first thing I would say would be don't be afraid of early mornings. I was.
Hmm.
Turns out it's a blessing. I didn't know.
Yes.
Uh, you learn eventually.
Yes.
But also don't be hung up on outside structure. One of the things that I'm finding most important is using your own definitions,
Hmm.
um, like your own definition of success, your own definition of effectiveness. Like you know if you're being effective, and you know if you're not.
Exactly.
Um, so like, you have that wisdom in you. Too, like there are ways to tune into it. Sleep is but one of them, but you have that wisdom in you. So listen to it.
That's right. That's right. And get the most that you can out of those mornings,
Uh,
the most. As you are. Yeah. Courtney, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
asking.
The
That's like so
support.
sweet.
I am looking forward to continued engagement with you because I love that you're so tuned in to lifestyle medicine, more tuned in than you give yourself credit for. But you really are so tuned in. So thank you so much for sharing your insight. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day out there on the West Coast. And I'm going to be adding some show notes and some links to Courtney's website where you can find out more about her, the fantastic work she is doing in organizational management, and just being in touch and in tune with mindfulness and applying that not only to her work with her clients, but even in her own personal and professional life. So, Courtney, if you'll shoot that information over so we can add that in, I want to be able to provide that for folks. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Healthy House Calls with Angel. We will see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye. Take good care of yourself.